the war that no one sees. There is a silence that hides beneath all modern noise, a quiet hum of unease, vibrating under notifications, conversations, and restless plans. You feel it when the room finally empties and your mind keeps moving. It is not the world that exhausts you. It is the war within you, the collision between what you think, what you feel, and what you choose to obey. The Stoics knew this war well. Epictetus called it the only true battlefield, the struggle to command one's own impressions. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And today, neuroscience gives their wisdom a new language. Inside your skull, two generals argue for control. One is the amygdala, ancient, emotional, quick to alarm. The other is the prefrontal cortex, rational, deliberate, capable of restraint. Every moment of your life, they negotiate your state of being. When fear wins, the mind shrinks. The body floods with cortisol, perception narrows, and the present moment becomes a threat to be managed. When reason leads, the same system calms, clarity returns, and the world regains proportion. This is the invisible physics of peace. No philosophy is required to feel it. Your nervous system proves it with every breath. But the tragedy of our age is that few realize they are at war at all. We medicate anxiety, chase distraction, worship speed, anything but silence, because silence exposes the battle. Yet liberation begins in recognition. You cannot reclaim peace while serving both generals. The Stoic path, and the neuroscientific one, is not about domination but harmony. To let the prefrontal mind guide the emotional storm without denying it. To act from clarity, not impulse. So before you attempt to fix the world, you must first meet yourself in this inner arena. Notice the noise. Observe the reflex before it becomes reaction. The rebellion starts there, in awareness. Because the greatest revolution is not political or social, it is personal. It is learning to master what masters you. To reclaim peace, one must first learn what to let die. The illusion of control, surrender as strength control feels like safety. We chase it in routines, in relationships, in the obsessive management of outcomes, believing that if we tighten our grip just enough, life will finally obey. But the Stoics warned that this is the most elegant form of slavery. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Yet most of our suffering begins the moment we forget that distinction. Modern neuroscience agrees. The mind's demand for certainty activates the stress circuitry. The amygdala surges. Cortisol floods the bloodstream, and the prefrontal cortex, the seat of clarity, begins to shut down. The more we try to control the uncontrollable, the more our biology rebels. We live in a state of chronic tension, mistaking vigilance for agency. True power begins where illusion ends. Control is not mastery, presence is. To surrender what you cannot govern is not weakness, but intelligence. It's the conscious decision to free your mental resources from impossible tasks. Andrew Huberman calls it reducing cognitive load, the brain's bandwidth wasted on what it can never influence. When you release it, your focus returns to what is real, your thoughts, your actions, your response to circumstance. Seneca described this shift as the mind becoming self-contained. You stop orbiting around events and stand within your own gravity. The external world still moves, unpredictably and differently, but you no longer revolve around it. You participate without possession. You influence without obsession. You lead without control. Letting go does not mean apathy. It means alignment. It means living with both feet in the present, not reaching for a lever that doesn't exist. The paradox is that surrender restores motion. The moment you stop trying to force life, it begins to flow again. You make better decisions because they arise from clarity, not panic. You respond instead of react. When you no longer demand that life move according to your plan, you gain something greater than control. You gain composure, and in composure, there is strength. What you try to control ends up controlling you. Let go, and suddenly, you move freely again. The noise of validation, freedom from the audience. Every era has its form of slavery. Ours hides behind applause. We live in a theater of constant visibility, performing small versions of ourselves for the judgment of others, through words, achievements, or pixels on a screen. But every time you act for approval, you abandon a piece of your authenticity. You trade inner alignment for external permission. Marcus Aurelius warned, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. The Stoic knew that the pursuit of validation is the quietest form of corruption because it looks like virtue. You do good things, but not from goodness, from fear of being unseen. You speak truth, but only if it gains praise. You live, but only under the spotlight of acceptance. Neuroscience reveals what the ancients intuited. Each like, each nod, each sign of approval triggers a spike of dopamine, the neurotransmitter of reward. It feels like connection, but it's only stimulation, brief, hollow, and addictive. The brain begins to chase that signal, mistaking attention for affection and noise for meaning. Over time, you become restless when silence falls, as if your existence required witnesses to be real. Yet the deepest peace is found when no one is watching. When your actions are guided by principle, not performance. When the applause fades and your own conscience remains enough. Epictetus taught that virtue is its own reward. Neuroscience calls it intrinsic motivation, the stable release of serotonin and oxytocin that follows purpose, not approval. It's the chemistry of self-respect. To free yourself from the audience is to return to authorship. You stop editing your life for others and start writing it from within. This is not rebellion against society, it is loyalty to truth. The Stoic life is not a spectacle, it's a sanctuary. When you no longer perform, the mind quiets. Decision-making becomes clear, relationships become real, and silence becomes a friend, not a verdict. The freedom you seek isn't in being admired, it's in being undivided. When you stop performing, life stops being a stage and becomes a temple. The addiction to urgency, slow is the new power. We live in acceleration. Our days have become countdowns disguised as lives. Each task, each message, each obligation demanding that we move faster than our own breath. Yet as Seneca wrote, he who is everywhere is nowhere. When every moment becomes a sprint toward the next, you stop inhabiting time and start being consumed by it. Urgency is the new narcotic. It mimics importance, but delivers exhaustion. Modern neuroscience explains why. The constant release of adrenaline and cortisol creates a feedback loop of false purpose. You feel alive, but it's the aliveness of survival, not serenity. The default mode network, the brain's reflective system, never activates, so introspection and creativity die in the noise. The Stoics considered haste a symptom of confusion. Marcus Aurelius saw calmness as a mark of strength. No great thing is created suddenly. In the discipline of slowness, the mind reclaims its sovereignty. The prefrontal cortex regains control over the amygdala. Thoughts lengthen, perception widens, and clarity returns. This isn't laziness, it's leadership over your attention. To slow down is to rebel against panic, disguised as productivity. It's refusing to equate busyness with worth. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman calls this state deliberate rest, intentional pauses that reset the brain's attentional circuits and restore focus. The Stoics achieved it through journaling, walking, or meditative solitude, not escapes from duty, but rituals of balance. When you slow your breath, your world slows with it. The noise of urgency fades into signal. The trivial becomes visible for what it is. You realize that what is truly important rarely requires haste. True depth is found not in the number of things you do, but in the quality of presence you bring to each one. Slow is not the absence of movement, it's the mastery of rhythm. The wise don't rush because they know that peace moves at the speed of reality. You do not need more time, you need less noise. The armor of the ego. Humility as liberation. We wear invisible armor, not made of metal, but of pride, layers of certainty, self-importance, and defense built to protect us from humiliation. Yet the paradox of the ego is this. The more you try to protect it, the more fragile it becomes. Each time someone disagrees, ignores, or misunderstands you, the armor rattles and your peace fractures. The Stoics saw the ego as a mask that hides the true self. Musonius Rufus taught that virtue requires openness, not weakness, but alignment with truth. Hierocles expanded this to the idea of universal brotherhood, that we are not isolated egos, but parts of one shared mind. Modern psychology echoes this. Daniel Goleman calls it emotional self-awareness, the capacity to see the ego's reactions without becoming them. When this awareness grows, defensive reflexes fade and empathy takes their place. In the brain, humility has its signature. When we experience awe or gratitude, activity in the prefrontal cortex synchronizes with the anterior cingulate, regions that regulate perspective and compassion. The mind expands beyond self-referential loops. This is not poetic metaphor, it's biology. The brain literally quiets the I so the we can emerge. The ego tells you that vulnerability is danger, that admitting uncertainty will make you small. But the opposite is true. The more you insist on being right, the less you can learn. The more you insist on appearing strong, the less resilient you become. The Stoic path is not about erasing the self, it's about right-sizing it, seeing yourself as a thread in the tapestry, not the entire design. Humility is not submission, it's alignment with reality. It allows you to meet criticism without collapse, to admit ignorance without shame, to change direction without self-destruction. The humble person isn't weak, they are unshakable because their identity isn't built on illusion. Drop the armor. The world cannot pierce what has nothing to hide. The comparison trap. The mind as a distorted mirror comparison is one of the mind's oldest poisons. It masquerades as motivation, whispering that we only need to be a little better than someone else to be enough. Yet beneath this illusion lies corrosion. Every comparison fractures presence. It pulls you away from who you are and chains you to who you are not. Marcus Aurelius warned against this subtle slavery when he wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When your thoughts constantly orbit the lives of others, your soul forgets its original hue. You begin to measure your worth by reflections that were never meant to define you. Stoicism teaches that happiness is self-sufficiency, the harmony between what you are and what you choose to become. But comparison makes that harmony impossible because it roots identity in variables you cannot control. Modern neuroscience unveils what Marcus intuited 2 millennia ago. Social comparison activates the brain's reward circuitry, particularly the ventral striatum, in the same way that gambling or drugs do. Every perceived victory releases dopamine, a fleeting surge of pleasure. Every perceived loss triggers cortisol, shrinking your confidence and narrowing focus. Over time, this chemical seesaw becomes addiction. The mind compulsively checks where it stands, as if existence itself depended on ranking. Jordan Peterson describes this as hierarchical obsession, the ancient instinct that once kept tribes organized, but now traps modern humans in invisible competitions. Instagram, careers, relationships, all turned into scoreboards. The tragedy is not that you lose these games, but that you forget they are games at all. The Stoic rebellion against comparison begins with awareness, to notice envy before it hardens into resentment, to turn admiration into inspiration instead of self-punishment. The brain can be retrained. Neuroplasticity allows new circuits of self-recognition to form through gratitude and reflection. When you consciously focus on what is within your circle of control, dopamine stabilizes, anxiety drops, and authenticity returns. Peace emerges when you understand that life is not a race, but a revelation. Your task is not to outrun others, but to outgrow yesterday's version of yourself. When you stop looking sideways, the mirror clears, and the path ahead sharpens into focus. Comparison is self-abandonment disguised as progress. The moment you stop measuring, you start becoming. When you stop looking sideways, you finally see forward. The fear of stillness, the discipline of solitude. The modern mind fears silence more than failure. We fill every pause with sound, every void with motion, terrified that if we stop moving, we might hear the truth echoing inside us. Yet all wisdom, Stoic, scientific, and spiritual, begins where noise ends. Stillness is not the absence of life. It is life returning to its original rhythm. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, taught in the open portico of Athens, not a temple, but a space of air and echo. His lessons were born from silence. He believed that philosophy is not learned through argument, but through observation. Seneca later wrote that solitude is the laboratory of the soul, where one learns the chemistry of peace. But in our time, solitude has been mistaken for isolation. We flee from it as if being alone were a defect rather than a discipline. Neuroscience now confirms what the Stoics knew intuitively. When external stimulation ceases, the default mode network in the brain activates. This system is responsible for introspection, memory integration, and emotional regulation. In silence, the mind reorganizes itself. Neural pathways that were frayed by distraction begin to repair. Cortisol drops, dopamine resets, and creativity resurfaces. The calm we seek in noise was hidden in stillness all along. Andrew Huberman calls this neuroplastic calm, the state in which the nervous system learns to rest without collapse, to remain awake inside silence. It's what monks cultivated through meditation and philosophers through contemplation, a mind still enough to observe itself without judgment. Jordan Peterson frames it as voluntary confrontation with chaos, choosing to face the vastness of your own consciousness without fleeing into distraction. The discipline of solitude is not withdrawal from the world, it is the training ground for returning to it with clarity. When you spend time alone, your perception sharpens. You become less reactive, less addicted to validation, more attuned to the quiet logic of nature. You stop confusing presence with productivity. Stillness becomes your anchor in a storming age. But make no mistake, stillness demands courage. It will confront you with unfinished grief, with truths you've buried beneath motion. Yet by facing them, you end their tyranny. The Stoics understood this as the purification of the soul, the transformation of fear into insight. Peace is not a place you find, it is a state you train. The one who can sit in stillness is not escaping life, they are mastering it. Peace isn't found in motion, but in the courage to stop moving. The weight of the past, letting go without forgetting. The past does not live outside of us. It breathes in the body, hides in muscle tension, speaks through hesitation, and echoes in the quiet moments we cannot enjoy. We imagine the past as something behind us, but neuroscience reveals a different truth. The mind relives pain as if it were present. Memory is not an archive, it is a loop, and unless it is redefined, it keeps playing. Cato the Younger accepted death rather than live in dishonor. His defiance was not pride, it was clarity, the understanding that fate cannot be edited, only embraced. The Stoics called this amor fati, to love one's fate, not because it is easy, but because resistance is futile. When you stop trying to rewrite what already happened, energy once trapped in resentment becomes available for creation. Neuroscientist Joe Dispenza explains this process through memory reconsolidation. Each time you recall a memory, your brain reactivates the neural pattern associated with it. At that moment, the circuit is malleable. It can be altered. If you pair the old image with a new emotional state, the brain rewires the past itself. Forgiveness, then, is not moral idealism. It's neurobiological liberation. You stop feeding the chemistry of suffering. Daniel Goleman observed that anger and grief have half-lives. They decay when unreinforced. The Stoics intuited the same through premeditatio malorum, visualizing hardship before it arrives, transforming fear into familiarity. By revisiting pain consciously, you rob it of surprise. By observing it without identification, you remove its fangs. The past stops being a predator and becomes a teacher, but letting go does not mean forgetting. Seneca wrote that remembrance is useful when it sharpens gratitude. The wound becomes a window. Through it, light enters in proportion to the darkness you once endured. In this way, suffering refines the soul's perception of peace. Neuroscience mirrors this transformation. Trauma integration strengthens the hippocampus, restoring balance between emotional and rational centers of the brain. The mind becomes both softer and stronger, less reactive, more whole. To forgive is not to excuse. It is to release yourself from the endless repetition of pain. You do not owe the past your loyalty, you owe the present your presence. The Stoic mind remembers without reliving, honors without clinging, learns without bleeding. You cannot rewrite what happened, but you can stop rereading it. The cult of perfection, imperfection as grace perfection, is the most seductive form of self-sabotage. It disguises itself as excellence, discipline, even virtue. Yet beneath its polished surface hides fear, the terror of being seen as incomplete. The pursuit of perfection promises control, but delivers paralysis. You hesitate to begin, terrified of falling short, and so you remain trapped in an endless rehearsal for a life that never starts. The Stoics dismantled this illusion centuries ago. To them, virtue was not flawlessness, but progress, the ongoing refinement of one's reason and character. Seneca wrote, "No man is good by chance. Virtue is something we learn." Marcus Aurelius echoed the same truth in his Meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. In both, we find the antidote to perfection, mastery through humility, not through obsession. Modern neuroscience reveals the same dynamic. The brain's reward system, governed by dopamine, becomes hijacked when perfectionism turns progress into punishment. Each unmet standard triggers a neurochemical crash, reducing motivation and amplifying shame. Over time, this cycle trains the nervous system to equate effort with danger. The result is burnout, procrastination, and self-rejection masked as ambition. Jordan Peterson frames perfectionism as a distortion of order, the tyranny of an ideal that crushes the very growth it seeks to inspire. Daniel Goleman calls it the fallacy of control, where emotional rigidity replaces adaptive intelligence. The Stoics would call it hubris, the arrogance of believing one can outthink impermanence. Life by nature is fluid. Perfection denies this truth and demands that chaos kneel, but imperfection, embraced consciously, becomes a teacher. Neuroscience calls this error-based learning, the process by which the brain grows through mistakes. Failure is not evidence of inadequacy, it's the nervous system adapting to reality. Each correction refines the circuit of wisdom. The Stoics saw this as praxis. Philosophy lived through repetition, not declaration. Every day is an unfinished lesson. To live imperfectly is to live honestly. The sculptor who fears cracks never creates. The philosopher who fears doubt never learns. Marcus wrote that even the gods love those who stumble but keep moving forward. In that stumble lies the entire beauty of the human condition. Fallibility redeemed by persistence. When you stop worshipping perfection, you begin to love truth. You accept your humanity without apology. The gaps and fractures in your being are not evidence of failure. They are where grace enters. You are not meant to be flawless. You are meant to be faithful. The fear of death. Learning to die. Before you live. Death is not the opposite of life. It is its mirror. It waits quietly behind every joy, every breath, every heartbeat, not as an enemy, but as a reminder. The fear of it, however, shapes the architecture of our anxiety. We build empires, chase fame, seek comfort, all to postpone the unavoidable truth that everything we love will end, including us. Yet the Stoics saw this fear as the deepest misunderstanding of all. Seneca wrote, "He who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave." Death, he argued, cannot harm what is truly ours, our character, our virtue, our consciousness of having lived rightly. Marcus Aurelius echoed, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." For the Stoics, memento mori was not morbidity, it was clarity. It stripped away distraction and returned the soul to urgency and gratitude. Modern neuroscience reveals why contemplating death transforms the mind. Studies on mortality salience show that when individuals reflect deeply on impermanence, activity increases in the precuneus, a region linked to self-awareness and perspective. The ego temporarily dissolves, replaced by a sense of unity and calm. Life feels sharper, more sacred, because the illusion of endlessness disappears. The brain, confronted with finitude, reorganizes its priorities. Dopamine-driven pursuits lose meaning, and oxytocin, the chemistry of connection, rises. We become more compassionate, less trivial, more alive. Joe Dispenza describes this as transcendent coherence, the alignment of mind and heart that occurs when fear gives way to presence. Death, viewed rightly, is not an ending but an integration. It invites us to live from essence rather than appetite, to stop hoarding time and start inhabiting it. Cato faced death with serenity, not because he desired it, but because he refused to let it define him. To fear death, the Stoics taught, is to fear truth, that nothing external is guaranteed. Neuroscience reframes this as acceptance training, lowering amygdala reactivity to uncertainty through deliberate exposure. Each time we contemplate mortality, we teach the brain that impermanence is natural, not catastrophic. To learn how to die is to learn how to live, urgently yet peacefully, engaged yet unattached. The awareness of mortality does not darken existence, it illuminates it. You stop postponing kindness, you stop chasing validation, you start noticing the sacred simplicity of breathing, loving, and letting be. Death is not the enemy. It is the mirror that makes life luminous. The quiet rebellion. Rebellion has always been mistaken for noise, for crowds, slogans, and broken glass. But the truest form of rebellion makes no sound at all. It happens inside, in the quiet moment when a person refuses to be ruled by chaos, when they stop answering to the noise of the world and begin listening to the whisper of their own reason. This is the quiet rebellion. It does not demand attention. It demands awareness. It begins the moment you decide that peace is worth more than performance, that depth is worth more than distraction, that integrity is worth more than applause. The world measures success in volume, how loud you can speak, how visible you can become. The Stoic measures it in silence, how calm you remain when no one is watching. In the language of the ancients, this rebellion is the path of the sage, the one who has learned to live within his own gravity. Marcus Aurelius walked among emperors, yet served no master but reason. Epictetus, born a slave, proved that freedom begins not with possession, but with perception. Their rebellion was interior, to master desire, to choose virtue over vanity, to stand still in the hurricane of opinion and call that stillness victory. Modern neuroscience echoes their truth. Peace is not luck. It's neurochemistry trained by discipline. When you breathe deeply, the vagus nerve lowers your heart rate, the prefrontal cortex reclaims control, and the amygdala, the old sentinel of fear, grows quiet. Presence is rebellion in biological form. It is the nervous system refusing to live in emergency mode. Each act of mindfulness, each moment of composure, each pause before reaction, these are not passive choices. They are defiance written into your physiology. We live in an age addicted to urgency, comparison, and control. The quiet rebellion is the refusal to participate. It is choosing slow conversations over fast opinions. It is rising early to think before the world begins to shout. It is walking without your phone, eating without your screen, speaking only when words improve the silence. In a culture that equates noise with relevance, peace itself becomes a revolutionary act. To rebel quietly is not to withdraw from the world. It is to engage with it consciously. The Stoic does not run from society. He simply refuses to be owned by it. He works, loves, builds, and serves, but from a place of inner sovereignty. Neuroscience calls this self-regulation. Philosophy calls it virtue. Both describe the same mastery, a life led from within. You will not see banners for this rebellion. No armies march in its name. Its soldiers are ordinary people who have chosen awareness over instinct, restraint over reaction, and meaning over noise. They do not conquer others, they conquer the self. And in doing so, they change the collective, silently, one breath at a time. Look at your own life. Every resentment you release, every judgment you soften, every unnecessary word you choose not to speak, these are acts of resistance. Each time you choose stillness instead of frenzy, forgiveness instead of vengeance, focus instead of fear, you are expanding the boundaries of freedom. The quiet rebellion does not promise comfort. It asks for courage, the courage to detach from what most people worship. Validation, control, perfection, permanence. It asks you to trust that simplicity is strength, that humility is power, and that peace is proof of victory. To live this way is to become dangerous to chaos. The world cannot manipulate what no longer needs to be fed. So when the noise rises again, as it always will, remember the discipline of the Stoic and the science of the calm mind. Return to your breath. Return to presence, return to yourself. Rebellion is not rage, it's refusing to be ruled by noise. It's learning to walk away, not from life, but from everything that steals it from you. This is the quiet rebellion, not a war against the world, but a homecoming to the self. Silence.